And action.
Hey, I'm Q, and this is my story. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida. I was raised by amazing parents. Um, I grew up in church. I was in church constantly. My parents served in a really heavy capacity. When I got to high school, my first semester of my freshman year, I was playing JV football. And just the difference between a 14-year-old kid and a 15, 16-year-old kid can just be astronomical. But playing football, I ended up getting the starting job as a safety on defense. And it was really wearing on my body. It was really hard. I was constantly sore. And one of the other safety who was on the other side of the ball or the other side of the field was a junior, and he kind of took me under his wing, kind of like this is my freshman kind of thing. And he would take a pill before the game, and it helped him with his soreness and everything like that. And so I took one before a huge game, played really well. And after constantly feeling sore after practices and games, after I took that pill, I wasn't sore. So I started to take it before more games and then before more practices. And before I knew it, I was taking it before homeroom every day. And so next thing I know, I was addicted to an opioid as a 14-year-old. By the time that Christmas break comes around, he hands me a bottle of enough pills to kind of get me through Christmas break, and then go through Christmas break for 2 weeks. And I come back, and the kid was from a military family, so he had moved. And so I just was left with nothing. And I went through withdrawal for about 60 days. So missing class, throwing up in the bathroom, always cold, always itching. And my grades took a plummet after having been a really good student. My grades went to the tank. I was missing class. People were constantly worried about me. And I wondered, where is God in this? I was like, I'm in church every Sunday and things like that. And I was just going through withdrawals of an addiction, and I had no idea where God was. And I started to think, like, why would God let me go through something like this? So I had to search. I decided I was going to really figure out for myself what was going on, and is God in it? What's the right religion? Any of those things. So I started to read a lot of encyclopedias, different journals, and things like that to try and find what the real thing is. Eventually, I just kind of find through reading things about other religions that everybody at least acknowledges Jesus, or at least finds a way to, like, has a character that mimics Jesus. And I thought to myself around 16, 17 years old, I was like, okay, I'm going to get to being 18 and move out of my parents' house, and then I'm going to figure this out for myself. And at that point, I was starting to be convinced. I was still going to church with my parents and everything, because they held such a big position in the church we went to. I wasn't going to embarrass them by acting out just because I wasn't sure about my relationship with God. So fast forward, it's 17. I'm 17, and it's Easter of 2017, and we were serving with the kids ministry. My parents served in kids ministry growing up, and they had a helicopter candy drop for the kids on Easter. And this little kid came up to me. I think he had to be no more than 9, 10 years old, and super smart kid, way ahead of his age, maturity wise, super smart. And he comes up to me right after this altar call that we kind of have for the kids, right before they're about to go on the field and get their candy and all that stuff. And he asked me, he asked me if I thought it was real. He asked if I knew God, because he wanted to give his life and he wasn't sure. And I'm sitting there at that point. I'm like, I also don't know, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, kind of like you're asking the wrong person. And I told him, and this had to come from the Holy Spirit because this wasn't something that I could think of. I just told him I'd rather take a bet that someone would die for me to give me something in the future than just think that I'm just here existing, or that my life is meaningless. The kid's parents were atheists, and somehow he ends up at this church on Easter. And that was when it clicked for me, and the kid gave his life to Christ in that moment. I looked for that kid years later, but he has no idea that he saved me right before I was about to move out and try all these things, and who knows where that would have gone. And that's how um, I came to really start chasing Christ, chasing Jesus. So I'm 24 now. I'd say been a functional Christian for about 7 years, and really just chasing after um, God's will for my life and trying to stay in constant contact and connection with Him. I've moved to Miami, Florida, and I love it. I've been planted in an amazing church, an amazing community, just helping to continue to build and push the culture forward.
Cool. And what advice would you give to someone that is suffering with an addiction? It doesn't have to be the same drug they use, but any addiction in general.
Any addiction, man. So it's hard to talk about addiction because, I didn't necessarily go through a process that I chose. A lot of people who are aware of addiction and things like that, they're trying to go through a process that they choose. But I would say in that God is even using your addiction. The losses are planned just like the wins are. The defeats in your life or the hurdles are planned just like the victories are planned for you. Through that withdrawal period, had I not started asking the questions of why this was happening, I would have never started chasing and trying to find God for myself.
What would you say? Because there's obviously people that are struggling, but then there's also people that are struggling and they're curious about Jesus. And so some people feel that not going to church is perfectly fine. What would you say to someone that may be struggling right now and they're thinking about going to church?
Oh man, Torrin Wells had this awesome analogy. I saw him preach live, and he was talking about loving the church. And he brought the analogy of a guitar string up. And a guitar string by itself is free, yes, to do whatever it wants, but it can't operate at its maximum capacity because of that. So even if you connect it to the headstock of a guitar, it's still just hanging off a guitar. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really operate well yet, even though it is connected to the head. Once you connect it to the headstock and the body of the guitar is where you can start to make the tension and make the music. So that's what I would say to people who are trying to figure out whether church is for them or not. People who are scared of church, been through things with church. I've been through some hurt with the church I grew up in and things like that. But you can't be connected to just the head. You have to be connected to the head and the body. The church is part of what Jesus planned for us to operate in. So it's for our maximal potential. It's for our optimal use. That's how He designed it.
I want to know your answer to this. Why do you think that even coming over here and saying your testimony is powerful? What impact do you think it'll have on others? Why is it important to you?
Testimony is important to me. There's a Bible verse that says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Sometimes it's harder for me to let people in a little quickly. A lot of people just want to go into it straight, and I'm not necessarily that person yet. But I've learned more about people through hearing their stories and been able to help them. So the more that I open up, someone can help me. It's like a doctor and a patient. If the patient can't tell the doctor what's wrong, the doctor can't help. So that's how I kind of see testimony and speaking about your story.
Cool. What life advice would you give to absolutely anyone that's watching this video right now?
Yeah. There's nothing to lose by trying life with Christ. It's just better. It's not easier. It's not all sunshine and roses, but it is better. It's more worthwhile. It's more valuable. You can lean on Him whenever. You will grow through certain things in ways that other people won't because you have Him. You have nothing to lose. He made Christianity for you to be better, but He wants you with Him. And if anything, like I say, he made a way for you to be with him, and all you have to do is just receive it. He made it so simple. With other religions, there's so many things and that you have to do just to be in it and to make sure that you're in right standing. All we have to do is say a prayer and accept and believe. We just proclaim that we believe in our hearts that he exists and that he's in our life. That's all we have to do. You can choose to do more or you can not, but that's all that he requires of us.